Hurricane Idalia made landfall on August 30th at 7:45 a.m. in the town of Keaton Beach in the Big Bend area of Florida. Just several days before that, Hurricane Franklin was out in the Atlantic as the wave that would become Idalia was entering the Gulf, and several other waves and depressions were in the Atlantic as well. We began to start preparing for what looked like definitely was going to be a hurricane that could make landfall anywhere from the Sarasota area all the way around to the top of the panhandle of Florida. Good morning. So I just decided to do a quick video update. I'm in Sarasota County, which is just the south part of the cone, but as we learned from Ian, the south part of the cone is still in the cone. And right now I'm going to work this morning. I'll be leaving here, doing some personal hurricane prep around my house and getting everything secure, making sure my son is secure, and then be making a move probably later tonight for a hurricane chase, it looks like, for Idalia. By noon that day, we had gotten word that our school district, as well as many other local school districts, would be closed on Tuesday and Wednesday. Our school would be used as a shelter, so we began to prepare for that. On the way back home, I stopped at Cedar Key Beach to see the prep that was happening there. At this point in time, we had Idalia, which was getting ready to enter the Gulf of Mexico, and we had Hurricane Franklin in the Atlantic, which we knew would play some part in what would happen with Idalia. Idalia, Hurricane Idalia, different than, say, an Ian or other hurricanes. Normally they come from the Atlantic over across. We usually have several days of prep. Idalia came from the Caribbean Sea up across Cuba, so we haven't had as much time to prep. We've been looking at this depression and wave for, I don't know, at least a week or more. And we've been kind of thinking it would probably come along the Florida coast somewhere, but a while back we were kind of considering it to be maybe a tropical storm. Some models had it as a Cat 1, and there were some models that had it as a Cat 3. So that kind of leads you to say, oh, the models aren't always right, or do we say we kind of have to take a combination of all of the models to kind of help us make our forecast and best guess. The other thing with storms that are Gulf storms, I met up with my chase partner for Idalia, Taylor, and we started heading for our first target, which we felt would be Cedar Key. There we met another chaser named Mike, and we spent some time kind of getting our bearings on Cedar Key, where we saw that they had mandatory evacuations, and we had heard that the press was going to be kicked out around 5 o'clock, but we decided to head down that way anyway and kind of check things out. When we got there, we soon realized that most of the people that were there were either weather people or other storm chasers, that there were very few local people, at least in the downtown area. But we did see that Jim Cantori and Reed Timmer were in a house together on the Key, and we also did run into some local people who said they were going to be staying. So we ended up staying in that area for several hours, as the initial bands of Hurricane Idalia started to come over. While we were there, we were also able to see footage from people who were in Sarasota and the Tampa area as the first bands came across there, somewhere maybe around 10:30 that morning. As we sat in Cedar Key, we watched several funnel clouds set up, and we also saw that many people, of course, had boarded up and were getting their businesses and their homes, of course, ready for a hurricane. We knew we couldn't stay there for much longer because it was in a pretty low spot, and at that point in time, it was the best guess as far as where the target landfall would be, at least pretty close to that area. So we were trying to make a plan, and we knew we at least had several hours until sometime probably early the next morning to make a good decision.
A lot of storm chasing is actually storm waiting. We take the time to make sure that we're doing it right and we're doing it safely. We need to watch the radar, we need to watch the forecasts and see the various forecast models, and we also look for the updates from the National Hurricane
Are
Center.
coming over right now. If you've never been to Cedar Key, it's actually a pretty cute town. Thank you, Craig.
Because we got there early enough, I was able to really take the time and do some live streaming. I was really wanting to show people what Cedar Key looked like right before the storm, so they had that opportunity.
Before that happens.
We're also able to get a little bit of fun in while the initial waves are breaking, and we're seeing what the winds are really starting to pick up and do as the bands are starting to come over Cedar Key.
I've asked about behind the scenes, and I'm with three other chasers, and we've been laughing because it's definitely more of a waiting game than anything else.
My goal with the storm chase is to really tell the story. At about 6 o'clock that night, we left Cedar Key and moved back up to Dunellen, where we had a hotel room, and we stayed there for about 5 hours until we decided to head over to Perry, where we thought would be a good place that would be safe for us to ride out the Eyewall of the hurricane without being too close to the coast. We found a Walmart in Perry and spent several hours there as the initial Eyewall bands started to come across the state. The town of Perry, Florida is fairly small, and there aren't many places with concrete, and certainly no parking garages or anything that's up high. So we found the Walmart to be fine, but we soon realized early that morning that we would want to move out just a little bit farther away than where we were in order to try to catch the eye of the storm as well. We left the Walmart and we found a Marathon gas station where we stayed for the next few hours. At approximately 7:45 a.m., Hurricane Idalia hit Keaton Beach as a strong Category 3, which was just to the southeast of where we were in Perry. We decided to leave the Walmart and move a little bit farther south so we could get closer to the eye. We found a Marathon gas station in Perry where we rode out the inner Eyewall bands coming over. Taylor and I had to really sit and think about what we could handle as far as his vehicle and where we wanted to go to make sure we could maintain our safety.
Taylor. Man doing his thing, you know? My natural habitat.
In between bands, we got some time just to take a break for just a few minutes.
Sneak up on Mike. So we're in Perry, Florida. This billboard was across the street at a Hampton Inn. We watched it for quite a while as the wind ravaged it and finally knocked it over. As we watched it, we could hear the roar of the hurricane, which is an unmistakable sound. It finally came time to leave our gas station and head down south in order to try to get into the eye. It became evident that those massive pine trees that everybody was so afraid of were definitely going to be all over the area of the Big Bend. We started to drive and you could just see that there were trees down and power lines down as well everywhere you could see. But what was really amazing was as we started to drive out of Perry, we could see lots of debris, but we could also see the eye of the hurricane to our left. We decided to see if we could head back down to Cedar Key. We couldn't get down there, but we were glad to see that the Cajun Navy was already set up and ready to go with airboats and other boats to try to make rescues. We made our way back to Dunellen at around noon that day. Our hurricane chase was officially over.